Well, hello Internet, and welcome to my Dungeons & Dragons character creation tutorial. You guys asked me to teach you how to play Dungeons & Dragons, and so here it is. I'm going to teach you how to play Dungeons & Dragons. One of the easiest ways I think of learning how the game works is to create a completely original character using the supplied character sheet, and you can see it's right here on the right side of the screen. And what we're going to be using to fill it out is the basic rules, which are free, and there's a link in the description. There's a link to pretty much everything in the description. And I'm also going to be using the player's handbook, this guy right here, as well as the Dungeon Master's Guide to make sure that everything makes sense. And this tutorial is going to be kind of verbose. I am going to completely aim to make you understand the character sheet so that it makes total sense to you what all of these jargon terms mean. And the only thing I want to cover before I jump into creating your character is the different types of dice that are available so you know what they look like. Now this is what we call a D4, and whenever you roll it, whatever the number on the top is going to represent whatever the die roll is. Then you're going to get a D6, which you're pretty much well aware of. This is a standard dice, that's D6. Then you're going to have a D8, and this is going to be basically a diamond-shaped dice, so that's a D8. Then you're going to have a D10. Doesn't actually have a 10 on it, but it does have a 0. So this is what a D10 looks like. Then going to have a D12. Once again, biggest number on the die normally represents what the die is, so that's a D12. And then the die that you're going to be using a lot is the D20. That's this guy right here. So now that I covered what the different types of die look like, you don't need the die. You can actually get apps that roll dice for you or whatever, but they're cheap and they add a lot of fun to the game, so why not pick them up? But either way, now I'm going to jump over and show you how to create your own custom Dungeons & Dragons character. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to be using the basic rules that are provided by Wizards of the Coast, and this is the link to the basic rules, and they're free. And I'll also provide a link to that in the description underneath the video. Pretty much everything you'd ever want is in the description under the video, link-wise anyway. So this is the character sheet over here, and basically what I have to do is translate what's in the basic rules to this. Sounds really hard, it's really not. So what type of character do I want to create? This is the very first thing you want to ask yourself. Well, I decided a beginner probably wants to start with a character that is tough and probably isn't going to take a lot of damage. Well, after reading through the races and classes that are available, I decided that a hill dwarf fighter is probably about one of the toughest characters we can have. And how I decided that is, let's just scroll through here. Hopefully the scrolling doesn't bother you. I came down inside of here where we see dwarfs. See, I am currently in the race part of it. So we're scrolling through here and I see hill dwarfs specifically have a hit point maximum that increases by 1, starting at level 1 and increases by 1 every time you gain a level. Hit points are going to be a measure of how much damage you can take before you are either incapacitated or killed. So to be able to get an extra hit point is always going to be beneficial if I want to survive. Also, if I scroll through here down to the fighter section, which comes after the classes, way down here, and this is going to be on page 25 for my fighters. I can also see down here under fighting style that my defense specialty right here is going to allow me to gain 1 point in AC, and AC stands for armor class. And to make it really simple, and this is where you put your armor class right here, if somebody is attacking you, that attacker must roll a number with the D20 that is going to be equal to or greater than your armor class. So if my armor class is really high, the chances of them hitting me and damaging me goes down dramatically. Can also see here, if we look at the fighter that was second wind, this is going to allow me to regain hit points. No need to read all this. I'm just going to give you the brief overview of it. And like I said before, hit points are going to measure physical durability. And just so you know, if they go to 0, you are going to be incapacitated, not killed. To be killed, for example, let's say that my hit points were a total of 14, and this is where you put your hit points right here. To be killed, my hit points would have to drop to negative 28. So otherwise, you are going to be incapacitated, not killed. And later on, we'll get into what happens if you are killed. And another thing that might come up, like armor class comes up all the time when you're rolling. There's also another thing called difficulty class, or DC, and that's going to define how hard it is to succeed at an action. But we'll get more into actions here in a moment. So now the very first thing that I want to do on my character sheet is, because we saw over here that my defense fighting style is going to give me a +1 bonus to AC. I'm just going to go over here and put a little note on the screen that's going to say +1 DFS. And we're going to remember that for later. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom up to page 13 inside of my basic rule book, and I'm going to put in all types of information in regards to my dwarf. First thing we're going to notice as we go through here under dwarf traits is your ability score increase. Your constitution score is going to increase by 2. So what I'm going to do is over here in the constitution part, I'm going to put +2 dwarf trait. And you're going to write this in pencil so you can go in and erase it later on whenever you're calculating your constitution. Then as I go down inside of here, I'm going to skip all these different things until I get down to speed. And you're going to see right here that your walking speed is going to be 25 feet. So I'm going to take that 25 feet and put it over here inside of speed. As we scroll through, we're then going to see that my dwarf is going to have the power of dark vision. So what I'm going to do over here on the right side of the screen where it says features and traits, I'm just going to write dark vision, and then I'm going to make a quick note that says in dim light can see 60 feet, in darkness can see as if in dim light. Okay, so you're just going to take what's here and move it over here. Likewise, I have Dwarven Resilience over here, so once again, inside of Features and Traits, I'm going to put Advantage on Poison Saving Throws. And what advantage means is whenever I would go to get a saving throw, I'm actually going to be able to roll my dice 2 times and pick whatever the highest number is. And what the resistance means here, where it says resistance, is on a hit, I would still only take 1/2 damage of whatever that poison hit would be. Once again, we'll come down into Dwarven Combat Trading. It's going to say here that you have proficiency with the Battle Axe, Hand Axe, Light Hammer, and Warhammer. Well, I actually know that since I am using a fighter in the weapon section here under other proficiencies and languages, I'm actually going to be able to put everything, because a fighter has proficiency with every weapon, as well as bows, traps, shields, and every armor. So instead of just writing the hammers and all that stuff, I'm going to come in here and write all that down. And of course, you're going to find that information in the fighter section down below, which we'll be getting to in a second. And basically, proficiency is just going to demonstrate how much better a player is at using, say, a greatsword for attacking. And if you're proficient with a weapon, you're going to be able to add bonuses to it. And your proficiency bonuses are going to be up here where it says proficiency bonus. And basically, you're going to use these proficiencies anytime when you attack and use a weapon you're proficient with, or anytime you roll for a spell, or any ability checks using proficient skills, or any ability checks using proficient tools, or with saving throws. And your saving throws are all going to be right here. Now, as we come down, you're going to see tool proficiency, and it's going to say you're allowed to choose from either smith's tools, brewer's supplies, or mason tools. And I'm going to come over here in the features and traits area and write smith's tool proficiency. And it's important to know that if you want to use any of these artisan tools, that's what they're referred to as whenever we're talking about tool proficiency, you can only use them if you are proficient with them. So I'm only going to be able to use the smith tool proficiencies because that's all that I know about. Then we come down here to stone cunning, not stone cutting, stone cunning. And with this guy, I'm going to write stone cunning +2 perception checks involving stone in other proficiencies. And what that simply means is I'm going to get a +2 for perception checks involving sliding walls, or stone traps, or unsafe stone surfaces, or ceilings, or whatever. Okay, like I said before, getting into a lot of detail, don't need to memorize this. Basically what we're doing is just taking what's on the left and moving it over to the right into the right place. And then we come down to languages, and you should write in here Common and Dwarvish in your other proficiency section, because that's what it says right there. Then we come up to the fact that we're using a Hill Dwarf, and we want to be able to go and add all the benefits here. So one of the things is ability score increase. Your wisdom score is going to be increased by 1. So I'm going to make a note of +1 for Hill Dwarf inside of the wisdom. And then we have Dwarven Toughness, which is one of the reasons I decided to pick Hill Dwarfs as my race. And for that guy, I'm going to come over here in the hit point area, and I'm going to put Hill Dwarf +1, and then I'm going to put a colon +1 per level, just so I can make a note of that later on whenever I'm using my character sheet. And that's it. I got all of the different things about my Hill Dwarf and transposed that over onto the character sheet. And now what we need to do is go down to the fighter skills and add all of those, and that starts on page 25. Okay, so I'm down in the fighter section, and I'm going to come down, I'm going to skip all this stuff for now, and come down to class features, and every class and race are going to be handled exactly the same. The only difference really are spellcasters like wizards, and if you want me to do another tutorial like this for wizards, leave a comment below, and I'll do that, because it's the only thing that's slightly different than the basic fighter and all the other different races and classes. So now what I want to do is I want to cover my hit dice. So what I'm going to need to do here is come over where it says hit dice and put 1d10. And like I said before, hit dice represent your character's ability to survive an attack. And each level increase is going to increase your number of hit dice by 2. And once you use one of your hit dice, you're going to lose it for that round until you have none left. And the only way to regain it is if you have a long rest, you're going to regain 100% of your hit points. Remember, hit points determine if you are going to be knocked unconscious or you're going to be killed. So with a long rest, you're going to get 100% of those back. However, you're only going to get 1/2 of your hit dice back. And with hit dice, what you're going to be able to do is roll your hit dice, which in this situation is going to be your D10. You're then going to add your Constitution modifier, which is going to be right here to that. And that's going to define the amount of hit points gained from a short rest versus a long rest. And we're going to get to your Constitution modifier and how to calculate that in a second. You're also going to see right here where it says hit points at first level. You're going to see 10 plus your Constitution modifier. What you're going to want to do for that guy is to come over and put 10 plus 1 plus Constitution modifier, and whenever you calculate your Constitution modifier, you'll be able to go in there and put in that specific number to make sure that that's correct. Then we come down here, you can see all armor and shields for proficiencies. We've already added those in down here where we wrote that. You're also going to see simple weapons and martial weapons. We've already said that we can use any weapons down here, and it doesn't come with any additional tools. Then for saving throws, you can see that we have strength and constitution are going to be added in as specialties for our fighter. And to show that inside of saving throws, we're going to put a little dot here and a little dot there. Later on, I'll show you exactly what that's going to do for you. And then you're going to be able to choose 2 additional skills from this list right here. Acrobatics, animal handling, athletics, history, insight, intimidation, perception, and survival. And just so you know, a saving throw is going to be used to either avoid or reduce the effect of an attack on your character by a creature or whatever. And basically, you are going to roll a d20 and then add in any bonus ability modifiers here to see if you are able to avoid some type of an attack or not. And there are basically 3 types of saving throws. You're going to have fortitude, reflex, and will. Basically, with fortitude, you're going to apply your constitution modifier to stand up to attacks such as poison, disease, paralysis, petrification, energy drain, disintegrate, and so forth and so on. So for example, if somebody attacked you with poison spray, and let's just skip this here and let's go into poison spray and exactly what it does. And we just scroll down inside of the spellcasting area. Right here you see poison spray. Okay, so it says you extend your hand towards a creature you can see within range and project a puff of noxious gas from your palm. The creature must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or take 1d12 worth of poison damage. So what you would do with a saving throw, and this specifically, poison spray is going to be a fortitude saving throw, is you would roll, apply your Constitution modifier to that roll, and then that's going to determine if you take damage or not. Reflex, on the other hand, let's go to page 85, and let's look specifically for Burning Hands. Here's Burning Hands. This is an example of a reflex saving throw. In this situation, let's assume a wizard attacks with Burning Hands with a roll plus intelligence modifier for a total of 14. If hit, the spell is going to do 3d6 worth of damage. And if we come down here, we can see 3d6 fire damage. Or if you were able to dodge that attack, it's only going to do half as much damage as if in comparison to a successful hit. And how you would decide if you were able to dodge or use that reflex saving throw is to roll a d20, add your dexterity modifier to it, and let's say you came up with a 15. In that situation, you would best that attack, and you would only take half damage. And then the final saving throw, like I said before, is a will saving throw. And in that situation, you would apply your wisdom modifier to resist mental or magical effects. And an example of an effect you'd want to save in that would be Charm Person, which is right here. And you can see right here in the notes on the spell, it must make a wisdom saving throw and does so with advantage if you or your companions are fighting it. So basically it's telling you right there that this is a will saving throw and you need to use your wisdom modifier, which is going to be right here, to protect from being enchanted by someone who would try to cast a Charm Person charm on you. So anyway, let's get back to the fighter section, and that's going to be on page 25. And here we are. And you can see right here that I'm going to be able to use 2 additional skills from this list and put check marks down here inside of the skills area for those. And I decided to put one in here for perception and another one inside of here for survival. And basically perception means that I'm going to have an increased awareness of my surroundings, and it's going to increase my ability to eavesdrop and sense stealth. Once again, I'm leaning towards creating a character that's going to be very defensive and hard to hit or hard to attack. And then I'm also going to put a check here for survival because that's going to allow me to avoid hazards as well as find food. Again, I'm sort of weighing in on trying to survive. Then we come down into fighting style, and I already said previously I want to use the defensive fighting style, which while I'm wearing armor, when would I not be wearing armor, I'm going to get a +1 bonus to my AC. And now I'm going to cover the default equipment a fighter receives just for being a fighter. Now, whenever it comes to equipment, you're either going to be able to use the default equipment or you're going to roll to determine a random amount of gold and then buy the equipment based off of the amount of gold you are able to generate from rolling. I'm instead going to just use the straight regular old equipment here, and I'm going to show you how it works, because for the most part, for a beginner, it makes a lot more sense to just use the standard equipment, because if you have a bad gold roll, that's going to mess up your entire game. So the very first thing I'm going to do, you're either going to be able to choose A or B. A or B. You're going to be able to pick one from both of these choices, but only pick A or B in that situation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add chainmail. And if I want to find out what chainmail exactly does, I'm going to go to page 44, and that's going to show me all the different types of armor I'm going to be able to wear. And you can see right here I have chainmail. It's worth 75 gold. It's also going to say that it's going to have an armor class AC of 16. So now knowing that, I can take the 16 over here, add 1, because I had the +1 from armor class, and write 17 inside of there. And I'm also going to come down here inside of my equipment area, and I'm going to write chainmail 16 AC, and then I'm going to say disadvantage for stealth. And disadvantage basically says that if I have disadvantage and I try to go and use my stealth ability, I need to roll the dice 2 times and pick the least number rolled instead of the highest number rolled whenever I had advantage in comparison. And that's all we need to know about chainmail. Let's jump back up here to class features. Then we can see my next item is going to be a martial weapon and a shield, or 2 martial weapons. I am going to choose 1 martial weapon. Let's go down inside of here and let's look at our martial weapons. So right after armor, we are going to have down here your weapon options. And looking at all these guys, because I want to have a good weapon, but I also want to use my shield, once again, to protect myself, I'm thinking that the long sword is going to be one of my best options. So basically, the long sword is going to be able to do 1d8 worth of damage, and it is going to be a slashing type attack. However, it's also going to be versatile, so I could put my shield down during combat if I wanted to increase my potential damage, and in that situation I'd be able to change it into a 2-handed weapon and roll with a d10 instead of a d8 to potentially do more damage. So there's a lot of benefit. I can use my shield with 1-handed with a long sword, or I can go to 2-handed and do more damage. I like the way that works, so that's what I'm going to stick with. Now, in regards to slashing, different monsters are going to react differently to slashing, bludgeoning, or piercing damage. And whenever you look at the monster, whenever you look the monster up inside of your basic rules where it talks about monsters, or inside of books that you buy, it's going to tell you if they take some type of advantage or disadvantage to slashing, bludgeoning, or piercing damage. Okay, so that's just some information in regards to how that works. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and put my longsword in with one-handed as well as two-handed. And how you calculate your attack bonus, you're going to use whatever your strength modifier is plus your proficiency bonus. So you're going to use strength plus proficiency bonus, and I'll get more into calculating those later on. And then also in damage type, if we come over here and look at longsword, you're going to see that's 1d8 slashing. So I'm going to put 1d8 plus strength, your strength modifier, which is going to be right here in a little bit. And then I'm going to write slash. And then I'm also going to put in how it attacks in regards to two-handed. Again, 1d10 plus your strength modifier, and again, slash. All right, and we'll calculate those in a moment. Now, I also was going to come in here and I wanted to use a shield. Now we need to go back up here, and right here you can see shield, and you can see that shield is going to give me +2 for my armor class. So I can now come over here to my armor class and increase that from 17 to 19. And I'm also going to come down here in my equipment section and write shield +2 AC. And let's come back up into my fighter section and see what's going on. I'm also going to see right here, I have a light crossbow with 20 bolt option or 2 hand axes. I'm going to pick a light crossbow just so that I have a range attack. Again, we're going to come down and check out exactly what's going on with the light crossbow. So there's the armor, and here's this guy. So light crossbow, that's this guy right here. And it's going to do 1d8 piercing damage, and it's going to have a range of 80, which is going to be your normal attack, and then 320, which is going to be a disadvantaged attack. Again, disadvantage, roll 2 times, pick the lowest one. And this is also going to have to be loaded before you can shoot it, which is going to take an additional action, and it's going to take up both hands. So we're not going to be able to use our shield if we are using our light crossbow. Just something to know. So based off of that information, I'm going to write light crossbow, and for ranged attacks, you're going to use your dexterity modifier, which is going to be this guy right here, which we haven't calculated yet, plus your proficiency bonus. Remember, I'm proficient with bows and all that stuff, so I can write that I'm proficient with it. And then to calculate your damage, it's going to be 1d8. How did I find that out? Well, I went over here to the light crossbow, and it says 1d8 piercing, so I'm going to write 1d8 plus dexterity and piercing. Okay, so we have all of that information all written inside of there. And for the crossbow, I'm going to come over here and write in 20 bolts, and I'm going to write in the different range information in regards to how far it can go. Also that it needs to be loaded, and also that it needs to be a two-handed weapon whenever I plan on using that. And now I'm going to get the option to either use a Dungeoneer's pack or an Explorer's pack. And I'm going to go to page 49 to check those out. And you can see the different equipment packs that are going to be available to me. I am personally going to use the Dungeoneer's pack, and basically I'm just going to copy everything that's right here and put it right over here. So there you go. Now I know that I have a crowbar, hammer, and all these other different things available to me. Go back up into 25 for my fighter and look at what else is going on here. And basically what I see here is I have a bunch of other different things that I need to write down. So we have second wind, which is going to basically allow me to roll 1d10 and add in my fighter level to regain a certain amount of hit points, and I'm only going to be able to do that once per round until I take a long rest. So I want to make a note of both second wind, action surge, martial archetype, ability score improvement, extra attack, indomitable, and all these other different things. And these are going to be abilities that I get at higher levels. So action surge is going to come in the second level, third level, fourth level, fifth level, and ninth level. And I'm going to make a note of that over in my features and traits. And you can see right there that I did that. So I also put my defensive fighting style in there with plus AC, plus 1 AC, which is what this guy is right here. I wrote in second wind, once before rest, roll 1d10 plus level to regain hit points. That's also going to help me survive. Action surge, once before rest, get 1 extra attack or 1 extra action. Martial archetype, and then I just put all these in here, and I can later on look them up as the level of my character increases. And now it comes to personality and background. Now I want to pick a name for my dwarf, so I'm going to go to dwarf names, and this is on page 13. All the other ones are going to be different depending upon the race you chose. And I decided that my dwarf's name is going to be Darok Iron Fist, so we went and put that information inside of there. Then what you need to do is come in and calculate your height as well as your weight. I already wrote those in there. And in this situation with the dwarf, that's going to be on page 33. You can see down here, personality and background. You can see all of the different races are down here and how to calculate both the height and the weight in this situation. You're going to roll to determine what that is. So basically, to pick the height of my hill dwarf, I'm going to start out at 3 foot 8 inches. And I'm going to roll 2 d4s. And whenever I did that, I rolled a 3. So I'm going to increase my overall height to 3 foot 11 inches, as I did right there. Then what you do to pick the weight is you take the starting amount, which is going to be 115. Then you're going to roll 2 d6s. And in my situation, I rolled 4. A total of 4 with both of those d6s. You're then going to multiply that times 3, which was what we rolled previously whenever we were calculating the height, which is going to give me 115 plus 12, or a total of 127 pounds. And that's how I went and calculated that. Now I need to come in here and pick an alignment. And alignment starts right here, and then it comes down here. And you can either roll for the alignment or not. And basically this is just information that you can use to role play with whenever you're playing Dungeons and Dragons. And I decided that lawful good, which was the direction that I wanted to go. So I went in and wrote lawful good right here. And you start off with 0 experience points, and I wrote my real name inside of there, and fighter and hill dwarf right there. And then it's going to be time for you to pick your background, and that's going to start off at page 36. And you can see here are the backgrounds that are going to be available, and there's a whole bunch of different backgrounds, and you can either pick them or roll for them, just like we did previously with all the other different things. I decided in this situation to roll for it, and the background that I got was for soldier, which is going to be on page 42. Very important. I'm going to put a lot of information here with this. And one of the things, if you are a soldier or any of these other different backgrounds, you're going to get skill proficiencies. So I'm going to be able to come in here over in the skill section right here. I'm going to be able to put a tick mark inside of athletics as well as intimidation, which is going to be very useful. Now, if you were wondering what personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws and all that stuff means, basically what you can do is you could roll a D8, D6, or D6 for these guys to figure out what all those are. I went ahead and did it ahead of time. And as you can see, I rolled a 1 here, and I just wrote, I'm always polite and respectful. I'm always polite and respectful, and did the same thing for ideals, bonds, and flaws. And this is just going to, once again, allow you to role play better with your character and act a certain way from, whenever you're playing your story. Okay, so that's how we figure out all of those different things. Down here, I can then roll for specialty to determine what type of soldier I was. And in this situation, I got really lucky and rolled a 1, which means that I had the higher of the different options for a soldier, which made me an officer. So I'm going to come over here in features and traits and write officer, and it's going to say all soldiers will recognize your authority. And you can see down here where it says feature military rank, it says exactly that down inside of here if you read the details. And all these are going to be slightly different, but basically the same type of idea depending upon the different background options that you pick. I'm then going to come in here and I can see that I have tool proficiencies, 1 type of gaming set, vehicles, land, and I'm going to note that down here in other proficiencies. As you can see right there, land vehicle proficiency. Then over inside of equipment, I'm going to take all the additional equipment that I receive as a soldier, and I'm going to write all of that in here under equipment. As you can see, I did right there. Okay, and the insignia rank is going to match up with the fact that I was an officer and all that. And we'll get into what deck of cards and all those things mean later on. I'm also going to get 10 gold, as you can see, 10 gold pieces right there. So I'm going to write 10 gold pieces, but I'm also going to write 10 gold pieces right here. And this is where we determine, and you're going to be using a pencil here, of course, to determine and keep track of how much gold and silver and copper and all the different coinage you have as a player. And now it comes time for us to go in and measure our ability scores, which is what you have been waiting for. Now, to determine your ability scores, what you can do is either roll 4 d6s and then add up the 3 highest to determine your ability scores, or you can use a standard, which you can find on page 7. So let's go to page 7. And right here you can see the standard scores we used. I personally decided to use the standard scores because they work out good for me. Now, as a fighter that wants to be protected, what do I want to do? Well, I want to stay alive. To stay alive, that means I need to have a high constitution. I want to be a good attacker, so I'm going to be using strength more than I'm going to be using dexterity for range. So I'm then going to want to put some points into strength. Then we have dexterity. Then I would like to focus in on wisdom to increase my perception as well as my insight. Once again, keep me alive. I'm going to then pick charisma as the next to last most important because I want to increase my persuasive abilities. And then finally, I'll put the last 8 into intelligence because reasoning and memory doesn't really matter much for my fighter. So as you can see, everything is about protecting myself, performing strong attacks, and then ranged attacks, and then, perceptive abilities and so forth and so on. So I'm going to put all of those guys in there, and that is how you figure out what these different ability scores are. Basically, you use that, or you can roll for it. It's completely up to you. And remember, whenever you're calculating these, that you're going to add +2 for Constitution and +1 for Wisdom if you're making exactly the same thing as I have, or depending upon whatever other things you found in your, looking up your specific character, make sure you increase that. And that's how I was able to come to my final numbers in regards to all those guys. Now what you're going to want to do to be able to calculate your ability scores and modifiers, which go in these boxes right here, is you're going to use a table. And that table is going to be on page 7. Well, don't have to go anywhere for that. There it is right there. Now to figure out what your strength modifier is going to be, what you're going to do is take your 15, you're going to look over here, 14 to 15, and get +2. And you're going to do that for all of the different abilities. As you can see, I did right there. So +2, dexterity says 13, I look in 13, and I see this is a +1, just put +1 there. Constitution 16, 16 to 17, +3, put a +3 right there. And there you go. Now you have all of that information all laid out there, and you're going to be able to then take all that information, move it over into saving throws as well as skills. So you're going to take the +2 here, and since you have a check mark in there, that means you get to add an additional 2 to it to get a final saving throw for strength of 4. Dexterity, once again, you have 1. It isn't checked, so you just put 1 inside of there. Constitution, you have 3 right here. You add 2 to it, you get 5, and so forth and so on. And that's how you figure out what your saving throw modifiers are going to be for all of your different abilities. Likewise, you're going to do exactly the same thing for all these guys. If you see here, I don't know if you can see, it says Dex, Dexterity, Wisdom, Intelligence, Strength, Charisma, all those. So if it's Dexterity, you're going to take +1, put that in there. It's not checked, so you don't do anything else with it. Athletics, however, you can see this is Strength. So I'm going to take my +2 for my Strength, put that inside of there. Because it's checked, I'm going to increase that by 2 to get to 4. Okay, so you can see how exactly we add up all the ability modifiers and all of those different things. Now, if you're wondering what all of these different skills mean, I'll go through them. I already talked about saving throws. So whenever we're talking about acrobatics, that is going to measure your ability to stay on your feet on slippery surfaces, tight ropes, or during some type of a stunt. Animal handling is going to measure your ability to understand and use animals. Arcana is going to basically calculate your ability to recall spells, items, symbols, planes of existence. Athletics is going to measure your climbing, jumping, and swimming ability. Deception is going to measure your ability to deceive. History is going to measure your ability to recall lore. Insight is going to measure your ability to guess someone's next move. Intimidation is going to measure your ability to intimidate. Investigation, your ability to use clues, find hidden items, or deduce weaknesses. Medicine, your ability to heal someone. Nature, knowledge of animals, plants, and terrain. Perception, awareness of surroundings, eavesdropping, and your ability to sense stealth. Performance is going to measure your entertainment ability. Persuasion, once again, your persuasive abilities. Religion, knowledge of religious people and items. Sleight of hand, your ability to conceal or steal. Stealth, that's going to be ability to hide or sneak away. And then finally, survival, which is going to measure your ability to avoid hazards as well as find food. So we got a lot of things done here. We're going to come down here to passive wisdom. And to calculate that, you just take 10 plus whatever your wisdom modifier is, which is +1 right there. And we're going to slap that in. Proficiency bonus is going to be +2 for everybody, and that's going to measure proficiency with weapons and all these other different things. So that's +2 for a first level. Initiative is going to be whatever your dexterity modifier is, and that's just going to be used to calculate how quickly you can act whenever you and your party are getting prepared to attack. And inspiration can be used to increase any roll. So if you needed 1 additional point to be able to succeed at a roll, you could use your inspiration, and these get used up. And basically, inspiration points are going to be given by the DM as a reward for being true to the personality traits that you have defined right here. And then to finish everything off, what you're going to want to do here is come down here where it says Strength plus Proficiency bonus, and you're going to take your Strength modifier 2 plus your Proficiency bonus, add that in there, and do the same exact thing for damage type for all these different guys. And now you can see, now we have all of that information all together, all in one place, and everything is all set up. So hopefully that helps you guys with both understanding a lot of the basics of Dungeons & Dragons, as well as how to create a custom character inside of Dungeons & Dragons. So just like always, please leave your questions and comments below. Otherwise, till next time.